So I'm just going to talk you through this simultaneous equation here. We've got x squared plus y squared equals 17, and we've got y minus x is equal to minus 3. So you can see here we've got two equations and we've got two unknowns. We've got x's and we've got y's. When you've got a simultaneous equation where you've got two equations, two unknowns, you need to get rid of one of the unknowns. So in this case, the best thing I thought to do was to get y by itself by moving this negative x to the other side when it becomes a positive x. That gives me a value for y, and once I have a value for y, I can sub that into one of the equations. So I'm going to sub it into the first equation, and it'll give me a value, well, it'll allow for me to find the value for the x. Okay, so I rearranged this. I left the y where it was. I brought the negative x to the other side. When the negative x moved to the other side, it turned into a positive x. So I got y was equal to negative 3 plus x. From there, I took my first equation, which was x squared plus y squared equals 17. I had x squared plus y squared equals 17, but instead of y, what I did was I subbed in the value for y, and the value for y was minus 3 plus x. And you can see here, we ended up with an equation with x's, numbers, x's, and numbers. So what we've done there is we've got rid of one of the unknowns, so we got rid of the y's. So now we just have x's, which is brilliant. We just have x's and we just have numbers, so when you only have one variable, it's easy just to find the solution to that. So what we did there was we just went from this line here, we just expanded. We multiplied minus 3 plus x by minus 3 plus x, because if you square something, that's what you're doing. So like, for instance, the square of 5 is 5 times 5, which is 25. The square of 100 is 10, well, the square of 10 is 10 times 10. The square of 3 is 3 times 3. What we're doing here is we're squaring all this, so we're multiplying all this by itself. So when we multiply it by itself, we have to expand our double brackets. So we break this up. We say our negative 3 by everything in the second bracket, which is minus 3 plus x. And then we come on to our plus x by everything in the second bracket, and then we just expand it. So our x squared stays as it is. Our negative 3 turns into a positive 9, because a minus by a minus gives us a plus. Okay. From there, we've got negative 3 times x, and negative 3 times x is negative 3x. We then move on to our positive x times our negative 3, giving us a positive by a negative gives us a negative. 3 times x is 3x. We go back then to our positive x times our positive x, and a positive by a positive is a positive. X by x is x squared. And all that's equal to your 17. The next thing we need to do is just tidy all this up. So let's get all our x squares together. So if we get this x squared and this x squared, if we're adding two x squares, we have 2x squared. We then have to look at our x's. So we've got minus 3x, and minus 3x, subtract 3x more, gives you negative 6x. And our numbers there on the left-hand side of the equation, so this side of the equation, the numbers that we're left with is just positive 9. That's all equal, so equal to the right-hand side, and the right-hand side was just 17. So we looked at our equation here, and we could see we're kind of forming in a quadratic equation. So we can see that's kind of taking the shape of quadratic, where you've got x squares, x's, and numbers. But what we need to do is we need to make sure that we leave that equal to 0, because by leaving it equal to 0 means we're able to solve it. So 2x squared stayed where it was, or negative 6x stayed where it was, or positive 9 stayed where it was. The 17 here on the right hand side had to move to the other side of the equation, and when we move it, it turns from a positive to a negative. We need to tie this up. So we've got positive 2x squared, negative 6x, plus 9 minus 17, so we can pull our numbers together there. So we've got our 2x squared minus 6x, and then when we add 9 to negative 17, we get negative 8. The next step there is we've now realised that we formed the quadratic. When we've got something that's a quadratic, so we've got x squared, x's and numbers, you need to be able to solve it. This one's extra challenging because it's a quadratic that there's a coefficient there in front of the x squared. So what we need to do is we need to take the last value, which is our negative 8. We need to multiply that by the value that comes in front of the x squared, which in this case is 2. So negative 8 times 2 is negative 16. So negative 8 times 2 is negative 16, and we need to get the factors of negative 16. So 16, the factors are 1 times 16, 2 times 8, or else 4 times 4. We need to look at these here and decide which one of them can I make a negative 8 or a negative 6 from. So we need to get a negative 6. How we do that is 1 and 16 won't work, because 1 and 16 gives us, we can make the number 15, we can make the number 17, that won't work. we need to make the number negative 6. So 2 and 8, if we use negative 8 and positive 2, we can make 16. So negative 8 and positive 2 works because negative 8 plus 2 gives us negative 6, which is what we're looking for. So the first set of factors didn't work. The second set of factors did work. So fair enough, but let's just rule out the last set of factors. So 4 and 4. Can we make negative 6 with 4 and 4? No, we can make the number 0 or else we can make the number 8. That's that one ruled out. So what we did was we put in our negative 8 and our positive 2 instead of our negative 6. Now, the important thing to note is this equation here and this equation here have the exact same value. The only difference is that we've changed it. So instead of having 3 terms here on the left-hand side, we now have 4. The reason why we did that is because when we have 4 terms, we can always factorize our 4 terms by grouping. And when I say grouping, it means we put the first 2 terms together, we put the last 2 terms together, we take out what's common for the first 2 terms, take out what's common for the last 2 terms, and we'll notice that that works. So first 2 terms, 2x squared and minus 8x, common term there is going to be 2x. If I could take 2x out of the 2 of these 2 here, that's perfect. 2x times x gives me 2x squared. And 2x times negative 4 gives me negative 8x. So that worked for my first 2. I'm now going to factorize my last 2 terms, so term 3 and term 4. And if I was to look at the 2 of these terms here, what I could take out there would be a positive 2. So if I take out a positive 2, 2 comes out. So 2 times what gives me 2x, 2 times x. 2 times what gives me negative 8, 2 times negative 4. So 2 times negative 4 gives me negative 8, so that works. And all that's equal to 0. I now know that if I've got all this here equal to 0, what I can do is I can bring these 2 terms together to give me 2x plus 2 multiplied by x minus 4 is all equal to 0. That means that this here is equal to 0, and you can see that there, or else this here is equal to 0. We're multiplying 2 things together and we get an answer of 0. Those 2 things, one of them has to be equal to 0. So I left the first one equal to 0, and then I left the second term equal to 0. Here I can solve this by bringing my 2 to the other side, and by bringing my 2 to the other side it turns into a negative 2, and by bringing my negative 4 to the other side it turns into a positive 4. So anytime you move something across the equal sign, it always changes sign. So it changes from a positive to a negative, or else it changes from a negative to a positive. So this here gave me 2x was equal to negative 2. This here gave me x was equal to 4. If I want to find out what 1x is, I need to divide this here by 2. So if I divide the left hand side by 2, I get 1x. Because I divide the left hand side by 2, I have to do the exact same to the right hand side and divide that by 2. Negative 2 divided by 2 gives me negative 1. And here I already have my x value being equal to 4. I've got 2 x values here. So I now need to go back and find my 2 y values. If you've got 2 x values, you're going to end up with 2 y values. Okay. So I took what my y was equal to. Y was equal to negative 3 plus x. Negative 3 plus x. What I did then was I subbed in my x value. Here I subbed in x equals negative 1. So I had the exact same equation, except for I put in a negative 1 there instead of the x value. I had the exact same equation here for my y over here, except for instead of my x value, I subbed in positive 4. So negative 3 plus negative 1 gives me negative 4. So I have to fix this one here. So let me just swap that out there. And that's going to be a negative 4. And then we look at this side over here. Well, I'll just fix that completely. So now we've this side here sorted. And what we'll do then is we'll look at over here. So we've got negative 3 plus 4. So negative 3 plus 4 is, if you've negative 3, think about it in terms of money if you're bad with your negative numbers. If you owe the bank €3, you lodge in €4. The first 3 that you lodged in brings you back to 0. The next one brings you back to 1. So my 2 coordinates there were negative 1 and negative 4. Remember, x always comes first. It's the same as in the alphabet. X comes first in the alphabet and y comes second. And here we had x being equal to 4 and your y value then being equal to 1. Negative 1, negative 4, positive 4, positive 1. Negative 1, negative 4, positive 4, positive 1. So just looking at that there, you can see you've got your circle there, which was x squared plus y squared is equal to 17. And you've got your straight line graph, your linear graph, which was y minus x is equal to negative 3. So you can see the 2 points of intersection. The first point of intersection was negative 4 and negative 1, negative 4. And the second point of intersection was 4 and 1. And if we were to go back there, you can see that in the last page.